Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of Music News Roundup number 304. Yeah, this is where I like to corral and bring together all the best news from the past week into one place, making it easy for you all to digest. Today is Friday, February 20th of 2026. I can't believe we're almost at the end of the second month of the year. This time is flying by, but we have so much great news that has already come out and a lot more to add to it today. Music news on or related to Van Halen, Queen, Journey, Heart, Scorpions, Skid Row, Twisted Sister, Foo Fighters, U2, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We have so much stuff in here to cover. We're going to get into it in just a bit, but before we start, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also, leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it, and of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you'll never miss an episode. Stay up to date on cool things like this, where we are talking music news. And so we are going to kick off here with Alex Van Halen confirming that he is in fact working on a brand new album of unreleased Van Halen songs. Now, according to Alex, these songs were songs that were being worked on by him and Eddie Van Halen for the next Van Halen album. So it's not just leftover stuff. This was an album that was started prior to Eddie's passing that was not completed. Wolfgang Van Halen apparently plays on the bass for all of these songs. Now, the thing is, there is no vocalist associated with it. No mention of potentially having, say, David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar return. In fact, Alex Van Halen said his first choice for vocalist was Paul Rodgers, although unfortunately Paul turned him down or passed on the opportunity, saying he just didn't feel he could really live up to those expectations of what it would take to sing the way that he once did, now doing it for Van Halen. So that was Alex's first choice. No other mentions about people that he may have reached out to or who it could be, though he does say that it's not really about the name of the person. It's about the feeling. It's about what they can provide vocally. So we could end up with an unknown or equally end up with a very well-known person. I would like it to be one vocalist and not, say, a whole bunch of guest vocalists, which is where this might go, and I really wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, but we'll have to wait and see on it, though. New information seems to be dropping on this every few weeks. Anytime Alex does an interview, we are getting more and more information, which is really different than the way things used to be. Information on Van Halen used to be so tight-lipped, and then now it seems like Alex is just freely giving this stuff out in interviews, which is pretty cool. Regarding some of the news we talked about in the past regarding this, where Steve Lukather was listed as being involved, and now that has been confirmed by Alex that Toto guitarist Steve Lukather is in fact assisting with the album. However, he says Steve will not play a single note on the album. The guitar, in fact, will all be played by Eddie Van Halen. So the rhythm, the leads on this apparently recorded before his passing. And as I said, along with Wolfgang Van Halen on bass and of course Alex on drums, we get 3/4 of the final lineup of Van Halen for a brand new Van Halen album. And so far, he is referring to it as a Van Halen album and not an Eddie Van Halen solo record or anything like that. So it'll be really interesting to see what transpires over this year and how far they get with it and what additional information we get. But apparently, brand new Van Halen album in the works. All right, next up, Journey apparently considering a reunion with Steve Perry, their original vocalist. And this comes directly from keyboardist Jonathan Cain, who confirmed that Neal Schon, the band's only original member at this point, but founding member of the group, has reached out to Steve, inquiring whether or not he'd like to come back to the band, and Steve apparently is considering it. Kind of interesting that their or that Jonathan, I guess it's not really the band, but Jonathan announcing this before anything has actually transpired. Maybe this is all in a guise to get Steve Perry to think about it quicker and come back. Who knows? But Jonathan says that, Steve would come back as a guest, and they've got more than 100 shows booked, and he could show up for any of these shows. And so it sounds like, at least at this point, that's how they're setting this up. Previously, I reported on the fact that current vocalist Arnel Pineda, who had not shown up at any of the recent live performances of the band. And while this had been kind of hush-hush and nobody had mentioned it or talked about it or explored it, when I looked into it further, I found out the reason that he was not able to make those trips was due to pending legal issues that he has against him, and this is in the Philippines, his homeland, and so he was not allowed to travel due to that. And with these shows fast arising, I have to wonder how much of them reaching out to Steve is in the event that Arnel will not be able to join the band. And in fact, they would be able to go on with Steve Perry fronting the group. Though I will say that Jonathan, as part of his recent interview where he was talking about this and announcing this, says Arnel will certainly be ready at the start of the tour, and will be back, in time for it. So at least at this point, it is looking to be Arnel would be fronting the group. Steve Perry might come out for a few songs. I think there's a bigger thing at work here, and it may well, in fact, turn into a full-on Steve Perry reunion, though don't know if he could do a full show. As these artists get older and older, and even though I think Steve still has a fantastic voice, at least from his last few studio recordings that have come out, and I think he could do it, the question is whether or not these artists can do a full-on show. Lou Gramm goes out and guests. He doesn't do a full show. He does 2-3 songs. Dokken goes out on the road. George Lynch comes out and does a few songs. Not that George can't do a full show, but that is just the agreement that they have. So is this something that is going to be going on in the future? A lot more acts doing this? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But right now, Journey could be doing a full reunion with Steve Perry if Steve Perry chooses to return. All right, then we've got Heart, who recently patched things up. The two sisters back out on the road. Ann and Nancy Wilson. Seems to be everything in order, and having played those shows. And now Nancy is saying that she feels as though the band should make one more album, and that they have a lot to say still, and that this creative spark has hit her, and she's got a lot of new songs that she thinks is perfect for Heart. And then also put forth that Ann apparently is writing too, and has a bunch of songs, and so hopefully they're going to find enough songs together that will be right for a new Heart album. And so she is saying that she thinks that the band should drop one more album and take a victory lap in 2027. So would we get the album by the end of the year? Probably not. Probably early 2027. But wouldn't that be great to get that album and have Heart go out and do one more major farewell tour at this point? Very, very cool. Already some cool albums earmarked for 2027, so to speak. Moving on and continuing from a story that we talked about last week with Skid Row, looking for their new singer, doing a special audition process. This is hosted by Sweetwater Music Instrument Company, but anyone can audition. Lots of those auditions turning up online. And so now female vocalist Chez Kane, known for her albums of throwback 80s material, has thrown her hat in the ring, done an audition video. It is out there, so you can watch her doing her audition to join for Skid Row. It's the first sort of named person. She doesn't have a very big name, but certainly known out there and has a phenomenal voice. And I guess, with the fact that Skid Row had Lzzy Hale fronting, that idea of a female vocalist fronting Skid Row could be a thing. It would be interesting, but I myself would much prefer a male vocalist to continue that role if we can't have the original lineup, I just feel as though when you go down that road of changing things too much, at what point is it no longer what the band was originally intended to be? And I've seen some bands do that with female, changing from a male to a female fronted vocalist. And sometimes, at least for me, that's too far removed. And with a vocalist having such a big prominent element of what it is that you hear from a band, yeah, that's just my take on it. It would be interesting. I'm not saying I wouldn't love to hear it and check it out, and I wouldn't follow it and buy it and all of that, because I certainly would. But there's just certain artists that I think need that edge, and at least in my opinion of Skid Row, I think it needs to be male vocalist. But again, I'm just, speculating here. I'm just talking and so forth. But who knows? At the rate this is going, it may be, Lizzie Hale may be able to be on a break again and come back and front the group by the time they want to go out. Who knows? All right. Now, this one here, also a follow-up to a story from last week. Twisted Sister, who's had to cancel their 50th anniversary tour due to Dee Snider resigning from the band. And while he said that, he doesn't feel he can perform up to par, and that he doesn't feel that he can really give the 100% that fans know him for. When that information came out, I was very concerned about what that meant for Dee and what was going on with Dee. But he has finally released a statement, and he is confirming, in fact, that he is not dying. So apparently a lot of other people were concerned the way that I was. And apparently what it is, he has a lot of issues with arthritis, simply making it impossible for him to perform, because he had said that he could only do, 2 or 3 songs. He was not going to be able to do an entire show, and that was also a defining factor in it. So certainly really glad that nothing more serious is the issue there, and that is not why he is resigning from the group. But that said, I am surprised that it took until now for Dee Snider to figure this out, or the band to figure this out. I mean, perhaps they didn't want to start the rehearsals and go down this road until the gig was lined up and contracts were signed, and they knew, in fact, that this was going to happen. But at the same time, didn't they rehearse? Didn't they check out if they were going to be able to come back? What would it sound like if they did come back? But maybe they only performed a couple songs. Maybe they didn't try doing a full set run through. Who knows? But at this point, unfortunately, the step down, and we're still kind of waiting to hear whether or not Twisted Sister has any plans moving forward. They did release a statement saying that the future of Twisted Sister would be decided in the next few weeks. This would now be basically the end of the second week here that we have gotten this information. So perhaps next week, and or maybe the week after, we will get some information about what Twisted Sister is going to do. Will they pursue getting a different vocalist and go out and do some sort of farewell thing? Maybe Dee Snider comes out for 2 or 3 songs, the way that is happening with Foreigner, and we're talking about it with Journey today and other bands that are out doing that, right? Who knows? All right, we are going to move into concert news here. Scorpions continue to celebrate their 60th anniversary, not only with a brand new remix that is getting ready to come out for their debut album, Lonesome Crow, but now they've got a Las Vegas residency that they are doing at Planet Hollywood. It's going to kick off September 17th and conclude October 3rd. Special guests will be Buck Cherry opening up. Congratulations to the band, but also guitar player Billy Rowe, who I had on my channel. Great guy, great individual. Love his stuff from the various projects that he has been part of. So fantastic for them to be able to be opening the Scorpions residency in Las Vegas. How cool is that? All right, and unfortunately, the new wave of British heavy metal band Satan has had to cancel all 2026 performances, so that frontman Brian Ross, who's also the frontman of Blitzkrieg, can undergo a life-saving preventative surgery this spring. So hopefully, yes, life saving somewhere down the road, but apparently not urgent enough that it isn't scheduled until April or May. The thing is, it is going to take several months of recovery. So while it is set in the spring, they would be recovering, throughout the rest of the spring and all through the summer, probably. And maybe they didn't have any shows lined up for the fall or not convinced that they could do those shows. I don't know. But unfortunately, they have canceled all 2026 shows. So, at this point, though, the band, Brian Ross, being a bit tight-lipped about what this surgery actually is, but at least it is preventative and at least it isn't urgent enough that they don't have to do it immediately, which hopefully means that this is something that he will fully recover from and eventually be able to get back out on the road and continue to celebrate the legacy of Satan and also Blitzkrieg, two great bands. All right, next up, album release schedule. We got three things here to talk about. Kicking off March 27th, Queen 2, the 1974 classic second studio album, which I guess at this point is celebrating a 52nd anniversary. The thing is getting a 5 CD, 2 LP deluxe edition box set. CD1 is a brand new 2026 remix. Apparently, the remix was done in order to reveal more of the clarity of the songs themselves, which sounds great to me. That is one thing I always want to happen with these new mixes that are popping up all around. CD2 is called Sessions. It has alternate takes and demos. CD3 called Backing Tracks. That one should be interesting. CD4 is at the BBC, and it ranges from performances in 73 and 74. CD5 is simply titled Live and has performances from 74 and 75. And then the 2 LP set is the new 2026 mix. That is included in there, along with some other cool stuff. All right, on April 10th, Sweet Reincarnation, a reunion album from around 1989. This was meant to be a new start for the band at the time, though. They only released 4 tracks from what they recorded. This lineup has Andy Scott on guitar and Mick Tucker on drums, 2 original members of Sweet, Mal McNulty on bass, who would play with Slade, Phil Lanson on keyboards, who would play with Uriah Heep, and then Paul Mario Day on vocals, formerly of Iron Maiden. In fact, he was the original vocalist for Iron Maiden, but Paul Mario Day would go on to sing in other projects. Now, the thing is, there's only 7 tracks on this, quote, album that they call it. It's got those 4 original tracks that were released. They add in 2 bonus studio demos of other songs that were not part of these 4 that were released. So there are 6 songs on this thing, and then there is 1 remix of the single Reach Out I'll Be There, which the first track on it is that song as a single version. So you get that song done twice on there, but all in all, 6 songs. It's being released by Metalville Records as a completist of the band Sweet, and the fact that Paul Mario Day is singing, I want to check it out. I'm going to be checking it out no matter what. I just wish there was a little bit more. In fact, I wish they had at least put maybe, say, 3 live cuts on there to round this thing out to 10 tracks total, even if it was split between studio, live, and a remix. But doing it like that, I think, would have been better than leaving it as just the 7 tracks. All right, then we've got on April 24th, Foo Fighters, Your Favorite Toy, 12th studio album and follow-up to their last one. But here we are, 2023. So 3 years on for that, they've got a brand new album, and they've also got a brand new drummer, Ilan Rubin, who comes from Nine Inch Nails, now their drummer, taking over for Josh Freese. 10 tracks on here, and title track is out now. You can check that out, and hopefully it's going to be right up your alley, some new Foo Fighters. And then we've got one surprise release that is already out now, U2, Days of Ash, a new 6-track EP, currently available to stream everywhere. It dropped on Ash Wednesday. Features 5 songs, 1 poem. The EP was being released immediately, apparently in response to current events. Lyrically, it's about the passion of people fighting the front lines of freedom. It's also focusing on recent events that have taken place in Minneapolis, Iran, and Palestine. So apparently U2 wanting to get it out while those things are currently hot. Musically, though, we got several songs on here that sound very much like U2 and a few that, for me at least, don't quite hit the mark. But solid songs nonetheless, so definitely been enjoying it. No word if we're going to get a physical release, but I hope that we do. Perhaps the way that they did the Zoo TV live EP recently. Maybe we'll get a version of it. Maybe if nothing else, we'll get a Japanese release or something. But I would like these 6 tracks as an EP, unless by chance the 5 songs are going to turn up on their new album that they're working on. But I get the impression that these tracks will not. They're releasing them this way. They're kind of written and released for the moment, but they will probably not make the album. But as I said, I do hope that we get a physical release of it. And usually in the next few weeks, we will find out whether or not that will be happening. All right. New albums that are out today. Friday, February 20th, former Hanoi Rocks frontman Michael Monroe, Alterstellar, his 11th solo album. First new album for him in 4 years since I Live Too Fast to Die Young from 2022. We get 12 new tracks from him. It's being released by Silver Lining Music. And at least at this moment, that is the only one that I am aware of for release. However, as you guys know, those who tune in on Saturdays for the What Just Dropped series, I always find a lot more. So I am hoping to still muster up and dig up perhaps at least maybe 14 additional things so we can have a good solid 15 to run through on Saturday. Check back. Let's see if that happened or didn't happen. But always find some cool stuff anyway. So tune in for that. But also certainly check back every Friday for brand new episodes of Music News Roundup, where I like to corral and bring together all the best news for you guys. And don't forget to tune in on Saturdays for What Just Dropped, where we talk about all the latest releases that have come out. But those 2 things, great ways to kick off your weekend, if I do say so myself. It's my favorite things to put together for you guys. I love sharing in it, and I hope you guys enjoy all the content as well. All right, everyone, take care. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday, and a good start to the week ahead. I'll be talking to you all real soon. Bye-bye, everyone.